What up? It's your boy, Nick Incredible Man, and yes, I am back at it again. And this is New Amsterdam Season 4, Episode 2. We're in this together discussion / review. And I just gotta say, man, there were moments that I enjoyed, but overall, I did not like this episode, man. Let's get into it.
Yo, fight until you make it, yo, don't think it, no, just take it. Don't wait for someone to break it, take control, then don't just fake it. Hey, you can make it happen, you just gotta take some action. Take the ship and be the captain.
Since I mentioned there was a lot of stuff that I didn't like in this episode and really care for, let's start off with one of the things in particular, which is Layla being ridiculed and a little bit picked on because she arrived at work in a town car. She has the new fancy stethoscope, and she has an iPad that, that I guess that doesn't charge or whatever, and she has one to herself. And the other students didn't really like that because they have to wake up at like 4 a.m. just to get to New Amsterdam, and they all have to share one iPad, and they rotate in shifts to share it, and all of their stethoscopes are probably garbage, and they can barely hear out of it, so they're picking on her. Now, sure, they don't know Layla's situation, and like she mentioned, a couple months ago, I was homeless. I was living out of my car, and I was sleeping in a storage closet. So, I mean, don't come at me like I just woke up one morning and decided to be a doctor, and all of this stuff was just handed to me. Granted, it was handed to her, but that's because her and Bloom are in a relationship. And why does it matter how I arrive at work? Sure, maybe if you get you a rich girlfriend or boyfriend, I'm pretty sure you can ride in style too. I mean, it is what it is. But the only thing I didn't like about it is because they're doing all of this, making this big spectacle because they feel like, well, oh my gosh, look at her. She gets to come to work early. But if you look at it like me, she arrived at work the same time y'all did. I mean, you guys basically got there at the same time. Whether she stays closer or she arrived in a town car or not, you guys came to work roughly at the same time. Sure, you have to wake up at 4 a.m., but I mean, that's the cost of living in New York. I mean, stuff is expensive in New York, so I mean, you guys knew this going into this, talking about being a doctor. Maybe you should have chose a different city to do your residency in or something. I don't know. I don't really know how that's working, but I'm just saying. But I did like the fact that Bloom, after Layla kind of put those concerns out there to Bloom, Bloom mentioned that, you can pay rent because Layla wanted to give up all of her stuff, which I didn't think was right. I don't think was right. But, Bloom decided to take rent from her, and Bloom was going to give it to everybody to give them a leg up. Because she mentioned throughout the episode, like, a lot of these doctors that was there, they were given a leg up, and they have a little bit of privilege and everything. And life isn't fair. Life isn't meant to be fair. It's the struggles and the hardships that you come over and go through in life that make it worth living and make the end of your story a fantastic one, if you will. I mean, I'm pretty sure nobody wakes up or goes to sleep, waking up the next morning, man, I wish I had a disease, or I wish I couldn't walk. Nobody wishes for the bad things that happen in their life. It just happens. But when life gives you lemons, you make some lemonade or some lemonade fruit punch or something. I don't know. You make something out of the lemons. Make a lemon pound cake or some lemon squares. You make something out of those lemons. It could taste bad, but you make something out of those lemons. I don't know where I'm going with this analogy, but that was just one of those things that it just really upset me. Another thing is the whole Lynn and Floyd relationship. This seems like it's just going in circles, and it's only been 2 episodes in this season. Floyd is annoying me so much. Floyd started out as a great character from season 1 all the way to season 3 until the end. Floyd was a great character, and they just took him and just blech. Because my thing is, they making this man get all love struck over this woman that he physically can't build a relationship. You know what I'm saying? Because she's trying to make it this whole thing where, we're not committing adultery. We're in a legitimate relationship. I'm with Floyd. I mean, technically, if you want to get technical about it, you are married to someone else while having a relationship, while sleeping with me. That's the precipice of adultery. I don't get where her logic is going with this. To each his own, but I'm just saying, because it upsets me because they're making Floyd seem like he's just pining over this woman, and she's a cool character, and I like her, And I even like them together, but don't put this in this whole weird context and complex little bubble, because Floyd is pining over this woman, and for some reason he loves her and she loves him, but every time, he try to make some move at work, she's like, well, we can have all of these, because he mentioned tonight on the rooftop that, well, I want this whole take you out and enjoy funny jokes together and laugh and all of this type of stuff with each other. And she'd be like, well, we can have that, but we just can't have that here. So my thing is, I don't see how this is possibly going to work. Now, if they had like this whole throuple type thing going on, or, if it was something along that sort, I could kind of get behind it a little bit. I could see, hey, her husband's cool with it, and they do their own thing, and he knows that she's in a relationship with Reynolds and all this other type stuff. But for one, they're keeping a secret from her husband. They can't interact when they're at work like that anyway. And how is this going to work in the long run? Well, you know what? I want to have a kid. I want to get married. How is this supposed to work? And sure, everything doesn't have to be in a traditional sense, but my thing is, you can't sprinkle tradition on just one part of the whole thing that they have going on with each other and then not sprinkle tradition over. You can't say that, she's married to her husband and they have a traditional relationship, and then her and Floyd have this weird relationship that they have, and then she nitpicks about this whole moment when Floyd, mixes the part about them sleeping together, and it's not just about them sleeping together, it's about them having a relationship. You can't pick and choose when you want to have this be a relationship, have this be sexual, have this be, a traditional marriage. It's weird, and that's the only thing that upsets me, because now they're making it seem like Floyd, there's so many women on this planet. Find somebody else. I don't know. The whole thing upsets me. Let me know what you guys think about it, because in the beginning, I was okay with it as long as he wasn't falling in love with her. But I knew that was going to happen because they had such chemistry to begin with anyway. So they should have never pushed the relationship. I don't know. I got to talk about something else. I could talk about that forever. Let's talk about Iggy. We see Iggy this episode is dealing with a lot of stuff. Iggy's still dealing with some of the stuff of him not actually seeing patients, but we see that he's trying to coach his residents. And I apologize for what I said in episode 1, because I think I called them, like his staff or whatever. Well, they are his staff, but they're residents, and I didn't know that, man. My hearing's not too great, but they're residents, and he's kind of coaching them on how to be better psychiatrists. And I get that, but it seems like Iggy is trying to he's trying to get through to them to operate how he would operate, and because he's not seeing patients anymore, he really can't really just let go. He's holding on just a little bit too tight while trying to get these people to be better psychiatrists. And it took Gladys, his assistant or whatever, to really just help him see and focus after all of the other residents decided to walk out on him and not partake and learn from him. So it really dawned on him at that point after talking to Gladys that, well, maybe I really should cut back, because they were psychiatrists. They're full-fledged psychiatrists even before they got their residency. You know what I'm saying? They're just having their residency at New Amsterdam and learning from him to be better psychiatrists. And at the end of the episode, we see that the one dude he kept interrupting is having a full-on session. Sure, Iggy's there watching, but he hasn't said a word. He hasn't interjected or interrupted or anything. And the dude was having like a legitimate conversation with this woman, and he was starting to get through and help her, and to give her to reach that conclusion without actually giving her the answers, to let her reach that conclusion on her own. And I feel like that's a nice setup for that character, for that dude, and for Iggy as well, as to really just let go. And because you're not taking patients anymore, you're helping other psychiatrists, and whether they choose to abide by your advice or not, they're still psychiatrists. So that was a nice little setup at the end to have that one psychiatrist take that part and have Iggy be in the room while he was still completing the therapy, and not give pointers, but just observe. So that was nice. Now, we see this episode that everyone has to come together with the whole ICU unit or team or room or whatever, because, they're understaffed all over the hospital, so everybody had to come in and help in the ICU. And that was a nice segment to kind of combine everybody together, but it felt like a last sentiment, because we see at the very ending of the episode, Max comes out and just lays it out front that him and Helen have decided to move to London together. Now, we see in that moment after everybody was cutting jokes about him and Helen being together and like, woo, yeah, yeah, yeah. What is a great nickname for you guys? We see that Karen calls some mysterious lady in like the whole little ending of the episode and everything like that, and decides to invite this lady to be, I'm assuming she asked her to be the new medical director of New Amsterdam. Now, look, lady, I don't know who you are, but I don't want you to be medical director. We can't have New Amsterdam without Max. Now, I would love for Helen to stay too, but Helen, you know, her mind is already set to go on back to London. Now, we can't have New Amsterdam without Max and Helen. Now, if Helen decides to leave, we can still have New Amsterdam with Max. I would be a little heartbroken because they're not in a relationship anymore. But we can't have New Amsterdam without Helen and Max. And hopefully Karen called her to maybe take Sharp's place. I honestly don't know because we didn't hear what was actually said from Karen's perspective. But I guarantee you, she either asked her to take over as a new medical director or in Sharp's place. Now, I really don't know, but we see that Karen kind of walked off a little upset. But in the preview, we also see that, you know, Helen and Max are having like this whole little moment and lovey-dovey at his apartment with Luna and everything. And she ends up talking to Karen, and Karen tells her that, you know, that she knows that all of this is wrong, because we see that Sharp is having like a real dilemma after dealing with her patient and his partner in the whole climbing incident. She feels like Max isn't there for her because Max doesn't really want to come out and tell people, and then he rashly decides to tell people at this party, and I feel like Max really doesn't want to go, especially after the date that he had with the nurse in the ICU where she's talking about almost resigning and then decided not to resign. So I feel like Max doesn't really want to go, especially since Dr. Wilder told him that, you know, hey, my brother's a schizophrenic and all this other type of stuff, and, you know, he's her priority, not her job. And we all know that Max loves Luna and she is his main priority, but New Amsterdam is that close second. And he loves it. He loves doing this job. He loves being the medical director of New Amsterdam and helping people. And if he leaves, he doesn't have that. And I feel like he only shouted out in that moment to leave with Helen, you know, like, hey, we're going to London, because he know that's what she needed. But I feel like Max doesn't really want to leave New Amsterdam because he loves this job. And can you honestly say that New Amsterdam is New Amsterdam if Max isn't at New Amsterdam? I mean, I don't know. It's a whole little thing, but I'm just saying, like, if he's not there, it's not New Amsterdam anymore. I mean, sure, it doesn't revolve around Max, but there's a little orbit around Max, if you know what I'm saying. But overall, it was a nice episode, but it just wasn't one of my favorites, man. It wasn't. It's not up there in high regard because there were so many moments that upset me the most in this entire episode. Overall, it was a nice episode, but there was just a lot of elements that I didn't like. But that's just me. So comment down below and let me know what was your highlights and what was the parts that you didn't like about this episode. What made you a little upset or happy, you know, take your pick, about this episode in particular. But I really want to know your thoughts about the Reynolds aspect, because that's the one constant in this entire episode that upset me the most. This your boy, The Incredible Man. Don't forget to smash the like button until you can't smash it anymore. Comment down below and I'll be sure to respond to each and every one of them, and subscribe, but only if you really want to, man. Peace out.
I cannot complain because today, I'm doing my